How the Bed Bath & Beyond sacrifice will cause the AMC squeeze. I want to explain when the courts will release the truth about the synthetic Bed Bath & Beyond shares, and even show you the proof that JP Morgan seller boxed Bed Bath & Beyond. Hey, welcome to AMC Daily. If you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on post notifications by hitting the bell so you never miss any of our uploads, and also enter our giveaway. But everyone remember, this is not a financial advice video. So America tweeted saying breaking news: Bed Bath & Beyond's Volkswagen short squeeze is coming. The court has just entered into notice and will be publishing the full list of Bed Bath & Beyond shareholders in just 3 days' time. He said 3 days from entered, Bed Bath & Beyond will publish to the New York Times on investor relations and tell the world that shorts have oversold the float. And he's also explained how this will cause the shorts to cover. He said if the theory that the float has been sold multiple times over is correct, it would cause a panic covering similar to the Volkswagen squeeze, where Volkswagen short sellers found out that the German government and Porsche owned most of the float. If numbers suddenly, drastically change, 75% of the float is locked up and it's suddenly illiquid. And as someone announces their acquisition, it's essentially the same story. Ultimately, short sellers will rush for the exits and eat each other on the way out when the true number of actual shares is released to the public. Back in 2008, when it was published that Porsche owned most of those Volkswagen shares, the shorts ended up panicking and rushed for the hills as they knew exactly what was to come. And obviously, if it's exposed in court that the Bed Bath & Beyond float has been sold multiple times over, the Bed Bath & Beyond shorts will be doing the exact same thing, as they'll know their days are numbered. Now, I'd also wanted to explain how it was JP Morgan that seller boxed Bed Bath & Beyond and forced it into bankruptcy. So he starts by saying that creditors, specifically institutions who lend money to individuals and companies, are the direct group blocking and attempting to sabotage Bed Bath & Beyond. They're likely doing so for not only their own benefit, but also the benefit of other hedge funds that likely trade under the JP Morgan umbrella. This Reddit post shows that JP Morgan froze the bank accounts of Bed Bath & Beyond on January 23, 2023, when a potential buyout was announced. It says they did this in representation of the other creditors because most of them are market makers. It was stated in the court filings this was due to the ABL-backed inventory levels being in about $200 million in over-advance to Bed Bath & Beyond. But we also know they did this after knowing there was a buyout offer given. January 13, a buyout offer was made by Ryan Cohen of RC Ventures to Bed Bath & Beyond in January of 2023. But JP Morgan stopped this deal from going through by freezing those bank accounts, effectively forcing Bed Bath & Beyond into bankruptcy. And he says, so now you know my deducted assumptions of why creditors stop Bed Bath & Beyond sale and forced it into a spiral of lower valuations over months. Because if the acquisition came out and if Bed Bath & Beyond ran, GameStop surely would follow shortly after. And that would mean bye-bye banks. Now, GameStop are also releasing their earnings for the first quarter of 2023 on the 7th June. And I think this is a massive, massive deal. We know that in quarter 4 of 2022, GameStop was a bit positive. Now, many shills and short sellers out there said these positive earnings will not last. But if GameStop reports their second consecutive earnings with positive revenue, cost-cutting, and growth, then watch out, short sellers. Watch out for GameStop. It's possible that GameStop earnings would be a bigger deal and wreck more short sellers than we just saw from the Nvidia earnings. And I think it would be a brilliant combination for the courts to expose the true number of Bed Bath & Beyond shareholders just at the same time that GameStop issues their second consecutive positive earnings. I think that would be a short seller destroying combination of good news in both Bed Bath & Beyond and in GameStop. Now, you may have also seen the shills are trying to explain the recent spike in AMC FTDs as simply an administrative error. But I think it's crazy that we see millions of FTDs not just once or twice, but every single day. And we have now for months. I personally hate it when I make over 5 million, 10 million, or 17 million administrative errors on a daily basis for months consecutively. And as Travis tweeted, he said, there must be too many administrative errors for 2 years straight. Yeah, right. Something interesting he also found is that South Korea recently fined Goldman Sachs $6.7 million for naked short selling. Again, it goes to show that naked short selling absolutely does exist and that FTDs are not simply an administrative error, but they are a prime example of synthetic and manipulative short selling. But guess who has tweeted saying, Gary Gensler, I just want to reasonably set my expectations for what's inevitably going to happen. He said the FTDs and counterfeit shares are out of control on many tickers, not just in AMC alone, but in GameStop, Bed Bath, and Beyond, IEP, and many others. He said, for the sake of argument, I'll just ask about a couple of stocks. How do you plan to deal with the massive mess that's occurring when GameStop, Bed Bath, and Beyond, and IEP all hit simultaneously? I think this is a really interesting thought process. All through the years in the past where we've seen instances of FTDs and synthetic short selling, it's only been with one singular stock at once. We saw synthetic short selling in Bear Stearns, and then a few months later we saw the same thing reoccurring again in Lehman Brothers and again in the past, in the 1990s, in the early 2000s, and in the 2010s we've seen multiple different examples of synthetic short selling, but they've all occurred at separate times. We have not yet seen an instance or instances of synthetic short selling where multiple stocks are being short sold in this way with crazy high FTD numbers, all at the exact same time. And again, it's not even just GameStop, Bed Bath, and Beyond in AMC. There's probably a list of 10, 20, 30, 40, or even 50 stocks where the exact same thing is happening. He asked, will you halt all 3 of these stocks or all 10? 20, 30, 40, or 50 of these stocks, just like you did with MNTLP at the exact same time? Or will you try and cancel the entire market? Because the SEC would literally have to hold upwards of 50 stocks all at the exact same time for the exact same reason during a short squeeze. Again, this is why I think if it is exposed the true number of synthetic Bed Bath and Beyond shares, and if GameStop has another consecutive profitable quarter, and if AMC also chips in with this giant market-wide squeeze, it would absolutely ruin the SEC and many of these major banks and major hedge funds. We would certainly need the DTCC and likely the Fed to come to the rescue and print billions, if not trillions, of dollars to pay for not just the squeeze, but to pay for all of the squeezes. And speaking of which, I wanted to talk about this very interesting tweet from Dave Lauer. He tweeted saying, somebody out there must know the answer. When is the last time a reasonably sized broker-dealer or market maker was shut down by regulators for securities laws violations? He said, not fined, and not some tiny overseas broker nobody's ever heard of that was operating illegally? Does anyone know? He said, here's the best answer so far. You've got Lehman Brothers, you've got Madoff Securities, and you've got MF Global. He said, I think each of them first declared bankruptcy and then was discovered to have been breaking the rules. So egregiously, there was no other possible response. I think this is really, really interesting. Obviously, the majority of these broker-dealer platforms, like many of these major banks, and including Citadel on top, just seem to receive tons of tiny speed bump fines and never end up in any serious trouble. It's almost as if the SEC and the Fed allows these rule breakers to continue breaking the rules because they know that shutting them down would likely cause a giant panic and potentially a recession. Obviously, we all know what happened when they eventually shut down Madoff Securities, and that name still rings a bell and is still very prevalent to this very day. I think this is really why the SEC and the Fed continues to allow Ken Griffin to keep breaking the rules and to keep operating illegally, because they know that if they do actually catch him and expose it publicly, they'll be the laughingstock over the town for at least the next 20 to 40 plus years. Although, just because the SEC doesn't want to be. Made fun of it doesn't mean they should not do their job and allow these rule breakers to continue breaking rules. I do hope the SEC does change its mind and does decide to investigate and shut down Citadel for breaking all of these rules and committing illegal crimes. Now, on a separate note, I'd also think I found something significantly worse than Ken Griffin becoming Treasury Secretary, and that is Jamie Dimon running for president. Genevieve tweeted saying Jamie Dimon for president. People on Wall Street have been urging him to consider running. Would you vote for Jamie Dimon? Again, I think that's the most crazy thing I could possibly imagine. And I couldn't think of any better way to destroy retail investors and to even destroy the general public than having Jamie Dimon running for president. Guys, that's all we have for you today. What is your opinion about AMC stock? Get involved and let us know in the comments down below. Thank you for watching.